to live studio.
Just let me know when to start talking.
Yeah. Saying check. No, but I don't want it to show you that. That's the thing. I wanted to show you this.
Oh, the picture.
Oh man, you know what? I should have tested this before. God, I did that last time.
Yeah, you should have tested it, yeah.
What's it coming up with?
I'm on the live as well. I can't hear myself, but I can hear you.
Oh wait, now they can hear you. They can hear you now. Cause I'm streaming.
Yeah, it's working now.
It's working now. It's working now.
Wait, I'm gonna move it. He's gonna move it. Go to the SpeakLight. Go SpeakLight.
Yeah.
It's working now.
Yeah.
It's working now. It's working now. You can just swipe to the right. Can you swipe to the right?
No. I need to do my intro thing, innit? Okay, yeah, they should be able to hear you in that now. Let me just quickly play my intro on that because that's my favorite bit. So wait 1 second. What's that movie? Yeah, shut the door.
I'm watching it, yeah?
Yeah.
لا يزال إن في الدنيا سلاما وظلال أخبر الأيام أنها في وصال قم بنا وانظر لآيات الجمال قم بنا وانظر لآيات الجمال.
That's done. Alright. Let's get into it. Alright, so I think they should be able to hear you now. Yeah.
Good.
So I just basically want to basically what we're going to be talking about is the topic is, what makes a man, and does money make a man? Does his physical strength, all of these sort of I guess you could say, factors or variables, do they actually count as making a man? And it's kind of also based on belief as well. You know what I'm trying to say, because everyone has their own sort of perception, but I think I think we should all go by that one perception, which is, laid down in Islam clearly for us. You know what I mean? So I'll be coming with a couple ideas from there. Mostly that's my kind of moral anchor, and then Zara as well should be sharing her experiences and whatnot. Just wanna kind of open with a statement, is that every man is a male, but not every male is a man. And there's a big difference between the two, because most of us, we like to think that we're men, but if you ask a brother or someone, and you question them, are you a man, they'll start kind of getting offended. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're questioning my masculinity. You know what I mean? But to become a male nowadays, the reason why I said that first statement is because to even become a male nowadays, like you can even get a surgery done and the government will literally legally accept you as a male. You know what I'm trying to say? But to be a man, it's a different story. And that's what we're basically going to be discussing today, what makes a man. So first question I'll kind of pose to you, Zara, is what are some of the traits that you would kind of, that would kind of make a man in your sense?
I think for me, what I see as a man, or what I believe to be a man, is not too different to what Islam lays down as what a man should be as, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for example, someone who's respectful, someone who's caring, someone who's kind, gentle, strong-minded, just all those basic things that are already laid out within Islam.
Yeah.
I don't think I know in this day and age, a lot of people will say, oh, well, a man needs to be financially stable so he can take care of the woman and X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more than that.
Definitely. And obviously you yourself, you're married now. How many years has it been since you've been married? Actually, I can't remember.
Well, it's been 2.5, just over 2.5 years. So inshallah in August it'll be 3 years.
Yeah, so 2.5 years. And obviously, like, prior to obviously getting married, you obviously knew Hamza and whatnot. So what sort of qualities did you see in him for you to say that, he's like kind of the right one in the sense that he's a like an ideal like man. Did you think he was like a man before marriage, or do you think he kind of built into that after getting married?
No, definitely. He was definitely someone that I looked at as being different to your average hometown boy, or the hometown that I'm from. I don't want to reveal it on YouTube or live or whatever. But and the reason for why I say that is because he wasn't interested in drugs. He wasn't interested in clubbing. He wasn't interested in, all this kind of money, sex, fame, which is everything that you hear about in rap music and whatnot. He was more focused on, getting an education, working hard, and also never missing Jummah, never missing his prayers, and these kind of things is what attracted me to him.
Yeah.
And I knew that that's how one day, inshallah, if I ever have a family, that's how I want them to be raised as well. That's the kind of father figure that I would want them to have. And it's something I kind of thought about even when I was a little kid, well before he was in my life.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that they're the kind of qualities that make you a man. You're focused on yourself and your future.
Yeah.
And whoever comes into your future, your wife, your kids, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's long story short for me.
To be honest, I think with a lot of especially in society, I think the way that we see what makes a real man is the external factors, in the sense that we don't look at maybe the principles or the values they hold. We rather look at what sort of material gain they might have. And I think that's where if we've basically defined a man nowadays as someone that's you're always striving to be, what I'm trying to say, like in a sense that someone that has a lot of money, let's say for example Allah didn't give that person that certain rizq, are we basically saying that Allah robbed that person of that manhood? You know what I mean? So I think the way we define a man is we have to base it on the principles, and that's what Islam does. You know what I mean? It's never mentioned that someone that has money is more of a man than someone else, them sort of things.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with that. And like on my Instagram as well, often when I put in these ask away kind of Q&As, one of the most common questions I get is, do you think it's okay to marry someone who's not financially stable?
Yeah.
And I find it quite interesting that that's like one of the top questions that come up.
Yeah.
Like
how would you address those sort of questions
exactly.
in one go now?
Sorry?
So how would you address that sort of in one take now? If you were to make a little clip, let's say, and someone asks you that question, what would your response be to that now?
My first answer would be, what do you constitute as being financially stable?
Yeah.
I mean, if he's able to provide a roof over your head, provide food on the table, make sure you're clothed and taken care of, and all the necessities are ticked off.
Yeah.
For me, that's financially stable. He's doing everything that's necessary, and possibly even more, because you're already living in a country that's so luxurious compared to others.
Yeah.
So for me, I think if someone asked me that question, I would say, if you could do those things, then that's it. And if you want more than that, then think about your own think about your reasons for wanting more. Are they materialistic? Are they aligned with the Islamic beliefs? And if not, they most likely are going to be materialistic. And is that okay with you?
So obviously, go on. Sorry, my bad.
No, go ahead.
No, so I was gonna say, so obviously we're gonna have probably a couple like non-Muslim views as well, and in that sense, obviously they don't follow Islam and the teachings and that. What would your advice be to them in terms of
Okay, let's put Islam aside for a second. I think sticking, just as human beings, just supporting your partner or whoever that might be, that person that you want to be with, is the foundation of your relationship, just believing in that person is enough to give them the strength to achieve more and be successful and all of that stuff. You won't have it all from day one. For example, if I take my relationship, put my relationship in this,
Yeah.
myself and my husband, we didn't have anything. We didn't have a job, we didn't have a house, we didn't have cars, we didn't have anything. But we know that we knew that we would study hard, would encourage each other to do better, we'll pray together, we'll do all of that stuff. And alhamdulillah, today things have changed. And
Yeah.
our point is, if you work hard, you'll
Yeah.
get there in the end, but you both need ambition.
Yeah,
So maybe the
definitely.
other thing is that I think a man should be ambitious. That is a quality that even from an Islamic standpoint, it exists.
Yeah,
And
like
a
Allah
man,
says, I think don't forget your worldly share as well as your akhirah. You know what I mean? Don't forget what Allah is giving you in your rizq. You know what I mean? So yeah.
exactly. So yeah, I definitely think that's what I would say. I think you need to first, as a woman, be willing to support your partner through thick and thin. Like even in whether it's a Christian ceremony or Islam marriage ceremony, there's always a quote like in Christianity is you stick by him through thick and thin, right?
Yeah.
Within their vows. And so something similar within Islam and other religions too. And it's true, you need to be able to support your partner through thick and thin. No matter how manly you expect him to be, he will struggle at some points.
Yeah, and that's actually a point that a lot of people kind of I could say overlook, because like a lot of people think that the ideal man, he's he can't show emotions. You know what I'm trying to say? Like a man, can he act emotional? And the fact is, like the real thing is that a lot of us think that a real man is someone that doesn't show emotion. But we see it many times, like even the Prophet ﷺ, and many examples of the companions. When it was a time to smile, they would smile. When he was angered, he would show. It was quite apparent he was angered. When it was time to shed tears, they would shed tears. You know what I mean? And this, people think that that makes you less of a man. You got to be a cold and stern guy and hold your emotions. But this actually enhanced their manhood. It never took anything away from it. We're talking about the best people
Yeah,
that set put in,
but
like,
you made an interesting point there where you said even the Prophet showed his emotions and
yeah,
he would cry too. But I think one of the problems that we have, especially within our culture, is that you never see a man cry
yeah,
because they do believe within themselves that it takes away from their manhood. And or you don't see them even want to discuss their kind of emotions. I don't know if they discuss it amongst themselves, amongst boys or whatever,
yeah.
but I personally don't hear them often share those kind of feelings.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that, I think society's kind of made them do that, because people kind of, if you ask a brother, like let's say for example, some way, if you're withdrawing those emotions and you're holding them in, basically, eventually they're gonna come out. They're gonna be channeled in one way or another, whether that be through depression, anxiety, So I think it's important that we encourage, people. I'm not saying go out on the streets and cry about what's going on, but I'm saying I think to show emotion, there's nothing wrong with that. We've kind of built this perception that a man has to be cold and stern and, like, what I'm trying to say.
No,
So
I completely agree with that, and I don't dispute what you're saying, but I think from a cultural standpoint as well, is something that needs to be encouraged a lot more as well, especially that the way that we're brought up. I think for our generation, it will be different when we kind of grow up and raise our kids, but I
yeah,
think for even with our parents, I don't think they kind of showed emotion in that way.
yeah,
So we ourselves did not show emotions that way either, especially for the men, for the boys in our, cultural background.
yeah.
And that's my point of view, but I might be wrong.
No. So I agree. I understand what you're saying. It's that it's like, even in the house, like sometimes we, like, it's kind of linked into emotion. With man, it's that in the house that they have to be, they can't let their wife get out of line. Like they can't let her shout at her or raise her, like she can't raise her voice at him. And even this doesn't correlate to what the Prophet ﷺ was. So imagine, like, there was actually a scenario where Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he visits the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yeah, and before he comes into the house, he overhears Aisha, yeah, raising her voice at the Prophet. Now, obviously, Abu Bakr, that's his daughter, you know what I mean? So he goes inside and he wants to put things straight, right? And he goes to literally smack her, yeah, because that's her daughter. Like, how you speaking to the Prophet like that, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So the Prophet intervenes, yeah, and he says, "Oh, no, it's fine, it's under control. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." Yeah. So after Abu Bakr leaves, yeah, it was kind of funny because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he basically says, "How did you find?" He says to Aisha, he says, "How did you find me when I stopped you getting hurt from that man?" Yeah. And then a few days later, Abu Bakr returns and he says, he found out that basically they put the differences to aside, and Abu Bakr basically says, now that you guys have been like made a peace treaty, let me enter your peace treaty as well. So this whole thing where the man has to be like a tyrant in the house, sometimes you can lose battles as well. You know what I mean, for the greater cause. It doesn't always have to be where the woman's the one that is kind of not looked down, but as in she can't raise her voice at you. You know what I mean? We kind of had this perception as well between a husband and wife.
And it's funny we're having this conversation as well, because another point that I kind of want to make is often my dad would kind of look at Hamza, my own husband, and see him washing dishes, for example.
Yeah.
Like, why are you washing the dishes? Like,
yeah.
I need to do that. And I would look at my dad and think, Daddy, firstly, just because you never done it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And I think it's exactly that. Little things like that. Don't assume that a woman doesn't have her rights too.
Yeah.
And both men and women should equally take care of the house, should equally, feel like they can share their emotions and feelings, whatever
definitely.
the end result might be. Because at the end of the day, you can't hold it in. And eventually, if you do hold it in, one of you will become a punching bag.
Exactly. And
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so like there was also like another example, like kind of linking to that, yeah, where the wives of some of the companions, they basically came to the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yeah, and they started complaining about even the husband, the husband's being too physical, right? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam immediately he heard this from his wives and he became angry, yeah. So straight away, yeah, he ascended the pulpit, yeah. So he basically gathered all the companions, yeah, and he said the famous words. He basically said that those of you that are the best are those that are best to their wives. Yeah. And he says, those of you that are violent and physical, they are not the best of you. Yeah. And it just goes to show that as soon as there was the problems that were happening back in those times, yeah, it can still be applied to today. So that's why Islam, the beautiful thing about it is that it could be applied 1400 years ago and it can still be applied today. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, we still see these problems that are quite prevalent in society. You know what I mean? You see people abusing their wives and whatnot and taking stuff out of context.
And it shows how simple it is. It can be between a husband and wife as well, and how this whole idea of like feminism, which has come about in the 21st century, it really and truly did exist 1400 years ago, because that idea of equality was already there. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, already helped his wife to cook, clean, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And now there's a whole we have all this all these adverts that come out saying men should cook too, or men should clean too. And recently we heard about Meghan Markle and her 9-year-old self writing an article to one of the adverts saying why are women only supposed to be cleaning. Not sure if you heard about that, but
it just goes back to the point where like Islam it's not equality, but it's equity. You know what I mean? It's you know what I mean by that, as in like there's certain stuff that the men has to do. Like I was talking, I don't know if you remember my last podcast where I was talking about inheritance. You know what I mean? In that sense, it's equity, not necessarily equality. Yeah.
But then that's an interesting point. So like, for example, you as a man, right? You don't let's say you get what you get from your inheritance.
Yeah.
Now you also have siblings. You also have other parts that you need to share with, right?
Yeah.
Now, eventually, let's say you get married and your wife says she wants her own home. She doesn't want to live with your parents, or she doesn't want to live with your siblings, and she doesn't want to have that responsibility. You as a man Do you turn around and say, I can't give you that despite you being able to afford it, if you can afford it?
Yeah.
Or do you say, no, this is where I want to live, and this is the end point. This is what we're going to do. What do you do as a man?
To be honest, you have to like weigh up. There's a lot of like factors in that, you know what I mean? So in the sense that if you can afford it, yeah, and your wife genuinely wants to do it, you obviously discuss with your parents and whatnot. But it's one of them ones where if you're the breadwinner in the family, yeah, and the rest like they rely on you, because one of the things that is said, I think the Prophet ﷺ said, yeah, he said that the sin that could destroy you on the day of judgment, if it was just that sin and you didn't have any other sins, yeah, it's the sin that people depended on you and you didn't provide for them, yeah. So that sin alone can destroy you on the day of judgment, yeah. So
I
if we
think
use
that's a
it to
very nice point that you've made.
say that again.
I think that's a very nice point that you've made. And if there's any sisters that are like kind of listening on here and they've kind of asked me that question in the past,
Yeah,
it's nice that you raised that point.
yeah, because you know what it is, like if someone is dependent on you, like I was just saying, the Prophet ﷺ said it, and he doesn't say it from his own whims and desires. You know what I mean? This is he's speaking the haqq. You know what I mean? So if he says something that sin alone can destroy you, if you didn't have any other sin, yeah, then imagine how great of an act it is to actually think of it vice versa. If you're actually providing for people that depend on you, you know what I'm trying to say. So in that sense, you have to think if you're the breadwinner in the family in that context, that scenario you just stated. There's a lot of factors, you know what I mean, and I can't just give you a straight up answer like that. But it just all depends on the sort of scenario. But linking it back to like the Quran and that, every time Allah basically addresses something important, something that needs to be done that's very important, He says in the Arabic, he says Rajal, yeah, he says Rajal. But if it's something not important, he will address males. He will say dhakar in Arabic. And instantaneously, or you can say immediately, Allah basically is saying in the Quran, yeah, he's distinguishing between the two, right? He's saying Rajal is for the men, but if it's something not so important, he uses the word dhakar, male. Now let's move on to the actual characteristics of this, yeah. Nowadays a lot of glamour is given to someone that knows how to fight. You know what I mean? Like, and there's actually a quite I'm not sure if you heard a story. It's not. I wouldn't call it a story. I want to call it like an actual event. Yeah, because stories people kind of put as if it's not real. You know what I mean? This is a real event that happened, and the Prophet ﷺ, yeah, we see him as the teacher, right? Like the doctor. He's there to cure the sickness, right? And the problems that are happening now happened 1400 years ago as well. Yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he comes into the masjid, yeah, and he finds the Sahaba, they're wrestling. Yeah, they're wrestling in the mosque, right? And he walks in, and one of those moments where like you walk in and something's funny initially, but then someone else walks in and then it becomes a bit awkward. One of them ones. Yeah, so that's what happens. He walks in, and all of a sudden it goes from like funny and they're wrestling and whatnot to looking a bit silly. So imagine the honor of this man, the Prophet ﷺ. He walks into the masjid and he says to them, "What are you guys doing?" Of course he knew what he was doing. Yeah, of course he knew what they're doing, but he obviously he's the doctor, innit? He's the doctor. He wants to cure the disease in the hearts. He's the teacher, yeah. So he says, "What are you guys doing?" And the Sahaba, they're like, just let it go. Forget it. Forget what we were doing. Ignore it. And he says, no. What were you guys doing? He wants to cure the sickness. And they reply, "We were wrestling." And then the Prophet ﷺ says, "Why were you guys wrestling? Why were you wrestling?" He said, "We were wrestling to see which one of us was the strongest." We were wrestling to see which one of us was the strongest. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, what did he reply to this? What was his reply? He says, he's here to cure the sickness, right? So he's like, the strong one is not the one who can physically put down the other man. Yeah? Anyone can do that. That's not how we determine who a real man is, who a real Rajal is. A real man is the one, when a calamity happens, he can control his anger and his wrath and calm down. Yeah? So instantly, we have this pandemic now. We see people going to the gym. They call it, when people want people to take it seriously, yeah? Sometimes people may think, they're not taking me seriously. I need to go gym. I need to get big. I need to get stronger. Yeah? That makes me more of a man. The Prophet is straight away addressing, saying that's not what makes you a man. You actually calming down when a calamity befalls you is what makes you a man.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with that. And I think, uh, again, I'll come back to culture, and I think it's something that's very opposite. Well, this story that you kind of just shared with us and
Yeah,
explained how the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, actually explained how being macho is not what is going to make you a man, is very opposite to what our culture kind of believes,
yeah,
or not even just our culture, but even society today. Um,
yeah, 100%, 100%.
and again, like I agree with you, it comes down to the fact that what we see on the media and what we see around us and on like billboards or even when we're on the bus and
Yeah,
posters
yeah,
everywhere,
yeah,
it,
definitely.
it, it's inevitable that it'll somewhat brainwash men or boys.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like that's why, like Allah, when he says the word like rajal, he's given it so much honor because it's not difficult. I'm sorry, it is difficult. I should say, it is difficult. You know what I mean? To actually, when a calamity befalls you, like when you're angry and you really want to, punch someone or something like that, you need to like how to calm yourself down. That takes real, like you have to be a real man for that. You know what I mean? It's not easy
But
to do that.
there is an element of pressure. There is an element of pressure from like women themselves. So, for example, this day and age, I do think a lot of women are starting to demand a lot more from men. From when they go into rishtas or whatever it might be, they have a certain expectation of what that man should have already before they get married to them. So whether it's a house over their head or a good job or whatever it might be,
Yeah,
now, when a man can't provide all those things, he thinks, okay, the one thing I can do, and I know it's for free, it's go to the gym and kind of work out. So
yeah.
at least if he doesn't have all of those things, at least he has that. So I do think there is some kind of unjust or unfair side to that too towards men.
Yeah, it's just our mindset has been polluted in a sense. Like we've basically taken the traits of, I don't want to put it like this, but we've taken the traits of the non-believers, I would say, and the entertainment industry, and we've
Yeah,
applied it,
because
and
we are. Yeah.
we've
Sorry,
used that
sorry.
instead. Like instead of using our moral anchor, which is Islam, and we claim to love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we claim to love the Sahaba, and we love the Quran. If you love something, your relationship with that should be very good with it. You know what I'm trying to say? So if we love the Prophet and whatnot, we should be having the same sort of mindset and the same sort of, the things that he valued. We should value it as well. If he said that this is a man and you love the Prophet, you would say yes, this is a man. And you look at it from today, yeah. And like you were saying, a lot of sisters think financial stability is key. Of course, that is key. I'm not saying go marry some guy who's homeless. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to say that we've taken traits and valued them more than principles. You get it?
Because we've misunderstood what's a necessity and what's just a want. What's a need and what's a want. And,
Perfect.
and if
Yeah,
you
that's
kind of
perfect.
separate those two, the needs are very minimal.
100%.
What are needs? Shelter, food, water, clothes, and we got free education in this country anyway. In this country, I don't think we can complain too much. We have a lot. Even if you don't have a home, you can still go to the council, a housing association, and get a roof over your head.
100%.
Um, but I think the thing is that so many people are pressured, especially young couples, they're so pressured into buying a house these days as well. Um,
Yeah,
and
100%.
even though people can live on rent and live a perfectly happy life, people don't want to do that anymore. And the thing is, even our parents will say, oh, why would you want to live on rent? It's wasting money, or you could save it towards a house and you could pay mortgage and xyz. So unfortunately, we do have the wrong kind of influence and mindset even from the people around us sometimes, I think.
Yeah, like that's where like the culture comes in, you know what I'm trying to say? Like that's why Islam, like you look at it for its teachings and you don't confuse it with culture. Like for my TikTok, yeah, I posted a video, yeah, about I think it was about the inheritance, yeah. And the guy who commented and he said something about, yeah, that I think it's to do with more about misogyny in your culture. And I agreed with him, you know what I'm trying to say? Like in the sense that Islam, you look at it for its teachings and you don't confuse it with culture, you know what I'm trying to say? And I think uh, that's why we should be following the principles of Islam as opposed to being influenced by culture, because there's so much things like you were saying about, how maybe your parents pressure you, and they kind of value things more than they should. And I'm not saying they don't have your best of interest. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that obviously our mindset has been polluted in that sense. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and it's all of us. And I think I completely agree with you, but it's kind of hard to escape that as well. Living in a Western world and being Muslim from day one, like when the moment we kind of get put into primary school and it's already in a mixed school, and then we're already educating ourselves according to, the system that of the country that we live in. So we're striving towards having a good education, trying to get a good job, and all of that. All of this stuff is already polluting our minds to have a certain kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that lifestyle is inevitably going to drive us away from certain principles of Islam. So, for example, we will start wanting more than we should, because we can see that we can achieve more. So, where do we kind of draw the line?
That's a very good question as well. Like, where's the point where you can, obviously ambition is good. I'm not saying in Islam it doesn't say to not be a millionaire. Like, that's all good and that, but I think people are doing it at the expense of their deen. We see some people that they'll break certain principles in Islam just so they can follow their ambition. That's where I think you've stepped over the line. You know what I'm trying to say? If you're of course, if you're like, sorry, go
Give
on,
me
go
an
on.
example of what you think that is.
An example,
Of
maybe.
like where people, yeah.
So obviously, like there's ways of getting halal mortgages, right? Yeah, halal mortgages. Yeah, there's ways of
No,
doing that.
okay, but can we discuss halal mortgages as well? Because
Uh,
I don't, when I
go
read
on.
halal mortgages, it doesn't really sound like to me,
Yeah,
when I read from a finance perspective, what
yeah,
halal mortgages sound like to me is that they are basically calculating the compound interest
yeah,
and then embedding that compounded interest into the capital repayments. And therefore, so when you often hear people say, oh, halal mortgages are expensive,
yeah,
it's because the capital repayments are higher because they've already embedded and calculated the 25 years compounded interest into that capital repayment. So really and truly, they haven't done anything different. It's just that they're not calling it interest. That's how it looks like to me from a financial perspective, but I might be completely wrong.
Now, so I'm gonna be real with you. Like, if I don't have knowledge on a topic like that, I'm not gonna talk about it. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah,
Sorry, yeah.
it's just an example in the sense that, um, I'll give the example of the mortgages of the houses. Yeah, I'm saying like, there's of course aim to get a house or whatnot. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm saying if you're doing it at the expense of, of interest and like you were saying and whatnot. Obviously, I'm not gonna go into the intricacies and whatnot because I'm not too sure about that. I'd have to do my research. Yeah, but if you're basically going into debt and interest and whatnot, that's one of the things that are forbidden in Islam. In fact, that interest alone. Yeah, that was one of the things that Allah basically said. That's the only how something's prohibited. Yeah, Allah basically prohibited that. Yeah, and He said that if that's the only thing that you could wage war against. That's what He said. Literally, that's the only thing you can wage war against, which is interest. Yeah. So if it's so much of a bad thing, and people are drowning in it nowadays. You look at Africa. Yeah, of course they've got beautiful places as well, but they wouldn't be in this in this debt had they not had the interest. You see what I'm trying to say? That's why Islam forbids it. So what I'm trying to say is, don't, at the expense of your deen, follow your ambition. You get it? Because at the end of the day, yeah, you could be aiming for a property that's 1 million, and you could be, breaking certain principles and whatnot. But what's gonna happen? You're gonna pass away. That property is gonna get distributed amongst your family. They're gonna be fighting over their inheritance, and it all comes back down to that. You know what I'm trying to say? So don't do it at the expense of your deen. Is basically the main point. You know what I'm trying to say?
I completely agree with that. And I think if you do follow those kind of simple principles, it'll just make your life so much easier and you will become financially stable. And the whole idea of like interest is only adding to your debt. Debt is already something, even from an Islamic standpoint, is something you shouldn't be getting into if you don't need to.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, it's a good point.
We're getting kind of derailed off the main point about.
What makes you a man, right?
Yeah. So we'll quickly go back to that. On the point about strength, it's very, of course you can defend yourself. I'm not saying that, But like, there's also another like a little scenario where I don't know if you've heard of the Sahaba. His name Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and he's basically gone to get some dates from the tree in it, and all the Sahaba are gathered around the tree and they're looking up at him, right? And they start laughing, and the Prophet ﷺ says, "Why are you guys laughing?" Yeah, and they're like, "Oh Prophet of Allah, look at his legs. Look how skinny they are. Look how skinny his legs are." They start laughing, and then the Prophet ﷺ said, he says, "Those same two legs that you guys are looking at, yeah, the same two legs that you guys are laughing at, in the eyes of," he says, "I swear by Allah, in the eyes of Allah, they are heavier than the Mount Uhud." But why is that? It's not because he was physically strong or he's big or he's proper muscly. Why? Because of his principles, because he was a real man, the values he had. You know what I'm trying to say? So if the Prophet ﷺ says that this man, you can look at his skinny legs or whatever, but those same two legs in the eyes of Allah, they're the same as Mount Uhud. What does that mean? It means that all these external variables that people define a man as nowadays, it's not the case. It's not the case. We should be looking at what within a man makes him a man. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. But how do you convince someone
Yeah,
that you are that man? So for me, I would say it's as simple as actions speak louder than words,
100%.
right?
Yeah,
So more people need to start showing that they are men, and that's just as simple as speaking respectfully, being kind, being gentle. But there's other traits
yeah,
that you will, as a man, you will not be able to show, perhaps even your future wife, or before she becomes your wife, you will not be able to show her those things until you are married. So how do
100%.
you
Yeah,
how do you
yes.
get that across that you are that kind of man?
To be honest, I think you've looked at it the wrong way. I think you should be looking at it from the other way. So if we first, I'm not saying it's on the onus is on the woman. Of course, I agree. The onus is on the man as well. You know, they've got to do their part as well, and the actions speak louder than words, 100%. But I think if the woman is already has that mindset where obviously she's being influenced by society, that I need someone that is gonna has a house already, or I need someone that has a car, I need someone that this that. I think we need to first fix the mindsets and change the mindsets of the people. Yeah, whether that be male or female.
No, I agree, but let's say that girl doesn't have that mindset, and that girl does just want someone who's respectful and someone who's all of these other things.
Yeah,
Now, I'm putting it into a situation now where a girl's gone for a rishta, she's gone to see a guy, and
yeah,
she wants a man
yeah,
now, right? How do you portray those qualities to a woman and say, because what the reason for why I'm asking this question,
yeah, yeah,
just to put it into context, is usually a girl goes to a guy's house for a rishta or whatever it might be, so a
yeah,
proposal,
yeah, yeah,
and the kind of conversations are, what job do you have, or how much do you earn, or maybe not as explicit as that, but there are a lot of there is a lot of emphasis on the financial side of things.
yeah,
So how do you portray those other qualities which within Islam
yeah.
are like is a true definition of a man?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Me personally, I'm not talking from experience, then, because I ain't really that old yet. But um, I would say, I would say some of the things that you could do. I think someone's character, yeah, they're quite easy to be around in the sense that sometimes when people come into Deen, yeah, they suddenly think that they need to adopt this sort of this stern and everyone's doing haram, and they become quite difficult to be around. Whereas in fact, in Islam, once the Prophet didn't teach that, I mean, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was quite easy to be around. He was he could laugh when he needs to, I mean, and smile when he needs to. I'm trying to say. So someone's character, yeah, when you go to meet someone, like, it's difficult in a sense. I know what you're trying to say. How are you meant to see that character from the outside? Could it be an act? Could it be this, that, and the other? Is that's what you're kind of getting at? Like,
Yeah, I guess maybe it's from a different standpoint, where maybe the girl should be asking the different kind of questions, rather than asking, what's your job, or what's your
yeah, that's a good point.
where
That's
are
a
you
good
going
point.
to live, or all of these kind of stuff. Maybe ask questions like, do you pray?
Yeah,
What's your view on a woman wanting to live separately, or what's your view, like, asking these real questions
yeah,
to understand a man's perspective, and having a reply that explains gently to the woman why he may or may not agree with her. So I bring it back to the point of, if a woman did ask, let's say a woman did say to her future husband, you know, I don't want to live with, I want to live on our, not rather than saying I don't want to live with your parents, she says I want to live alone.
Yeah.
As a woman, that's also her haq, right? But
Yeah.
as a man, I think what I would expect if I was to ask that question, I would expect him to gently, rather than get angry or upset or frustrated by my request,
Yeah.
I would see his manly quality if he responds with, I appreciate your suggestion and maybe we could think about it, but actually right now my priority is my parents, because like you said, there's no one else to look after them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most men, I don't think, actually respond that way.
Yeah.
I think that's the utter truth. Most men, if they hear that kind of a right from a woman as well,
Yeah.
despite the right to ask such a question, immediately they kind of go down the road of, oh man, she can't live with my parents, so why am I going to want to be with her?
Yeah.
And I think that's unfair as well on a woman. So then they do start looking for a man who's more financially stable, and it's a two-way thing, isn't it? It's I'm giving you the most common question that comes up. This example comes up.
Yeah.
More and more common this day and age. This is why I keep bringing this up. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good that you're bringing it up as well, because obviously we're here to kind of address, you know, those sort of, as well as, you know, defining what, or not defining, I should say, our beliefs on what a man is, you know, addressing those sort of common questions as well. Like, I agree with you in it, like the way you ask questions, like the way they react to situations, because it's all about character, innit? Because if someone has good akhlaq, they all basically like, you know, react in the right way, in a way, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, we link it back to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like his character, no one was better than him when it came to character. You know, when Aisha was raising her voice at him, you know, he could have easily like, you know, put her in her place. You know what I'm trying to say? Because he's a man or whatnot. Like, but there's no problem with that. Like,
Even you making that statement that he could have put her in her place, I think we need to eradicate that kind of statement altogether. Because what does that mean? Because you can't say put her in her place.
no, I meant like do something about it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Nah, I kind of it might have been a slip of the tongue still. Well,
It's fine.
so when Abu Bakr like came in and that, yeah, like he could have, like I was saying, he could have like hurt her, whatever, like that, but he stopped her. Stopped him. Sorry, he stopped him. You know what I'm trying to say? He stopped him like from, like, how's it called? How do you call it? He stopped him from hitting her. Why? Because he knows that there's, like I was saying, there's certain battles that don't need to be won for the greater cause. See what I'm trying to say? But not a lot of men will think like that. They'll think that, nah, I need to be a tyrant in the house, and this, that, and the other. And that's why it's, you know, one of those things where it's about the character of the guy as well. So, in answer to your question about how would you kind of know it, I think it's all about the way he reacts to situations, like you were saying to his question, like answering a question, like you saying, if you start getting defensive, like you were saying, how a lot of people do, then, you know, I don't blame the woman for kind of, you know, walking away and thinking, you know, why do I got to think like this when people are reacting like this? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, and I think it's a two-way thing on both the woman and the men's side. I think both men and women are having loads of expectations of
Yeah,
what a man should be and what a man is.
yeah,
Men have one idea and women have another idea, and how do you kind of align both the ideas between the two different genders?
yeah, 100%. I think another kind of moving on to the next point is some people might define a man as someone that, you know, leaves something behind for like his wife or his family and his kids. What's your take on that? Do you think that's what defines a man also, like maybe what he leaves behind after he passes away, like all the wealth he's accumulated?
I don't see from an Islamic point of view, right?
Yeah,
Inheritance is a thing. It exists.
yeah,
So if it exists, then yeah, I think there's an element of that that does contribute towards you being a man. It's part of your responsibility.
yeah.
So the answer to your question is yes.
No, that's what a lot of people kind of like think, and I understand why you would think that. Yeah.
I don't think it's because you said it. Do you think that's what makes you a man? No, that's
Yeah.
not what makes you a man, but it's part of your responsibility, is what I think.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So, like, that's what a lot of people think nowadays as well. But like, you even if you go to like a sheikh, yeah, and you ask him, yeah, I wouldn't say a sheikh, I'll say someone like in a mosque or something, like, and you ask them like, oh, there's a brother who's left nothing for his family, yeah, and he's on his deathbed now, like, and the guy would be like, what sort of a man is this? He hasn't left anything behind for his family, this, that, and the other. But there's actually a story, yeah, and like it's been narrated that there was a time when the Prophet ﷺ on his deathbed, yeah, and on his deathbed, imagine now, yeah, Aisha is there, yeah, and the Prophet keeps going in and out of consciousness, right? And the Prophet wakes up, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he wakes up and he says to Aisha, "Oh Aisha, how many gold coins do we have left? How many gold coins do we have left, right?" And now she says, "Oh Prophet of Allah, we have 7 gold coins left." And then he passes out. Then he wakes up again, yeah, and he says, "Aisha, I want you to put those gold coins, yeah, into charity, all 7 of them." And then she's thinking, because remember, after he passes away, yeah, she becomes haram on the believers, right? No one else can marry her, right? Yeah, because obviously she's the Prophet's wife, yeah, so no one else can marry her now after he passes away. So imagine now her scenario. He's saying put all 7 gold coins into charity, and who's gonna, what am I gonna do now? She's in a state of worry. You get it? And he goes, basically he passes away again. Not passes away. Sorry, he goes into, he becomes like, he gets knocked out again. Yeah, because he's in and out of consciousness, right? And then he wakes up again, right? And he wakes up and and Aisha, she didn't put the coins in the charity, yeah. And he says, "Oh Aisha, do you want me to leave? Do you want me to go to Allah, knowing that I still own something from Him?" Yeah. So essentially, the message is of this like sort of you know sort of thing is that people nowadays think that people are working maybe two jobs, yeah, to pay off the second house or the third house because they want to leave something behind for their kids, yeah, and they're doing it at the expense of their deen. If their boss was to tell them, Isa, I want you to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, yeah, and I want you to come here. People will be there at 4:50 just to show that they're better than all the other employees, yeah. But when it's Allah and He says, "Oh, come pray Fajr now. It's Fajr time." The adhan goes off. It falls upon deaf ears. They're like, "Oh, brother, do I really need to go to the mosque at this time? Do I really need to drive 5 minutes to the mosque?" But if it's you know what I mean? And we've started to at the expense of our deen, we've started to break sort of certain principles and make our own deen up as well. Like what I was saying about leaving stuff behind and people doing 2-3 jobs just to pay off the second house or the third house or whatnot.
I appreciate that, and all of that stuff is haram, and obviously innovation is completely wrong. But the point, I think there's an element of confusion, and even confusion from my end, which you could clarify, because you're definitely more knowledgeable than me on this stuff. But for example, you make the point of, let's say, I guess I'm a bit confused as to the purpose of inheritance again, because for me, it's you pass it on to the whole point is boys get men get 2 shares so they can take care of themselves and their future family or whatever, and then a woman gets 1 share because so that she can take care of herself.
Yeah.
Now, is that an obligation or is it not?
That's what's meant to happen because that's written in the Quran. Like that should be.
That is an obligation.
Yeah. So that's what gone. Yeah.
But then a man should work hard. So what I understand is that it makes you a man if you work hard and provide enough for your family for them to take on when you pass away, as long as you have not made that money at the expense of your deen. So all that money is halal, right?
Yeah. I'm not saying halal and haram. I'm saying that our actual mindset of doing stuff at the expense of our deen is wrong. You get it? I'm not saying whether it's halal or haram.
Then, isn't it? Because if we're buying mortgages and we're having multiple houses with multiple mortgages and they all have interest on it, it's as simple as it being haram, correct?
Yeah. Agreed.
Yes. But
But even
let's
if you
say,
do have the peas for it, yeah, even if you do have the money for it, yeah, well, you're actually paying off in a halal way or whatever, yeah. But you're paying off the second and house and third house, and people are saying like, yeah, that like that kind of I'm leaving stuff behind for my family and da da da. Like, people are, like I was saying, they won't go to the mosque at 5 in the morning, but if their boss calls them at 5 in the morning, they'll do that. You know what I mean? And someone that to obey someone, to worship someone is to obey them. Yeah, to worship someone is to obey them. And I might sound harsh here, but a lot of us we worship our the people that employ us, because if they tell us to come 10 minutes before, we'll be there 20 minutes before to show them, you know what, I'm not like the rest. But if Allah told you to come to the mosque at, I don't know, 4 5 in the morning, we're gonna be like, brother, do I really need to be there? Do I need to, you know what I'm trying to say?
yeah,
So
no, I completely agree with you. And you can do both, right? You can pray your 5 times a day, attend the mosque, and also be very hardworking and achieve all those goals that you want in this dunya as well, kind of thing.
100%, 100%. I think
But yeah,
the last point I think was it was that, yeah. So the last thing it was that there was actually like I like the story, because a lot of people think that, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he could, how do I explain it? But I'll say it and then I'll kind of explain the point, right? So imagine there's this scenario, right? And the Jibril, the angel, yeah, him and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam are sitting down together, right? And you know they're both sitting down together, right? And suddenly, like, an expression comes onto the Jibril's face, yeah, like he's shocked and he's scared, yeah. And the Prophet ﷺ is thinking, why is he shocked? Why is he scared? And all of a sudden, the angel comes down, right? And yeah, this angel has never, he's come down now, and he's gonna ask the Prophet ﷺ two questions, right? And he asked the Prophet ﷺ, he says, do you want to be a king prophet, or do you want to be a slave prophet? Yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he looks to Jibril and he's thinking, what should I be? That's his friend, isn't it? You know what I mean? Trying to say, like, what should I do? And Jibril says, pick the slave prophet. So he had the opportunity, basically, yeah, to become a king prophet, someone that has wealth, riches, and you name it, anything. But he opted to be the slave prophet. Why? Because he wanted to give us a message. Yeah, he wanted to give us because obviously he was our like ideal man, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyone that tries to be a man, they should be looking at what the Prophet ﷺ did. There's actually a book, yeah, by some guy called Michael H. Hart, right? And he talks about the world's top 100, yeah, the top 100 most influential people in the world. And number 3, I think he's put down as Jesus. Number 2, I think he put down as Isaac Newton. And number 1, he put down as Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Why has he done that? Because
so could you repeat the name just for everyone that is listening? What was the name of the author?
Michael H. Hart.
Okay.
And he basically says that the reason why I put Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as number 1 is because on a secular level, whether that be as a father, as a leader, as someone that creates peace treaties and whatnot, on a secular level, he was the most successful in everything. Yeah. So the man that you want to be striving towards, like, we'll put this like kind of to an end, this sort of live, yeah, is the man that you want to be striving towards is the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because he didn't leave no stone unturned. See what I'm trying to say? He gave us the right guide of life. Obviously, that's the Quran and his Sunnah. Yeah. So anyone that's listening right now, is the ideal man is someone that like the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think you've actually made you've made a lot of really valid points, and I really do hope that you've either saved this and like girls, our sisters, can kind of watch this over again and kind of listen to the stories that you've shared, because it'll put a lot of things into perspective. I think we can be greedy sometimes as women as well, of what we kind of see as a man being, and also a man can be greedy in terms of what he thinks a man should be.
Yeah.
But just the way you've ended it as well. I mean, the Prophet Muhammad being the epitome of the greatest of men's, and that's what we should be striving for, or men should be striving for.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for enlightening us with your knowledge.
Nah, thanks for jumping on the podcast as well. 'Cause I told you in the morning, innit? So it's a bit of a sticky one for you as well.
I was like, oh, what are we supposed to be talking about again? It's a couple of hours before, but yeah, I think you've addressed a lot of good points.
Yeah. Like, I think I'll have this saved as well, and it's gonna be on my YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to rewatch it like that, I'm gonna have it uploaded tonight. Should be good.
Yeah, that'd be good. I think that'd be a better way to kind of share it. But I think we should also do one where we're actually, on video call or whatever.
Yeah, cause that's what I'm trying to move towards, innit? Afterwards, when like Corona and that's done, like,
Yeah,
but
inshallah.
inshallah.
But
But yeah,
nice speaking to you, sir. And I think I'm gonna hit the bed as well now.
perfect. So I'll speak to you soon as well, then. Yeah.
All right, then Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Take care.